of shit car. I got a piece of shit car. That fucking pile of shit. I never.
Hey guys, Jay here, and today we're going to be going over the herifi bars and the Quanta Reef LED bars. Hopefully we're going to help hobbyists find out what light bar will be the best fit for their tank's needs and also their budget. We're also going to go over how to order each bar, the pros and cons of each as well, spectral differences, power draw and thermal management, marketing mishaps, and then at the end I'll also give my review on both bars. And hopefully this helps some of you guys figure out which one fits your needs. So kick back and enjoy the show. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. So we're going to study the market claims and present real data of both of these lights that are on the market. This is the Meso Blue by Mahina Corals. It's a custom LED bar that claims to be an accurate recreation of the ATI Blue Plus, which is the gold standard of our hobby. Notice in the highlighted area, it specifically says recreates the spectrum of the famous ATI Blue Plus bulb. This is the ATI Blue Plus as measured by the same spectrometer used by Mahina Corals. It has a peak of 437 nanometers, a minor representation and UVA band at 365 nanometers, and a broad blue spectrum that overlaps into cyan. It also has some greens that peak at 547 nanometers and some yellows at 578. And that rounds off the spectrum. Together, obviously, what I said earlier, that it's been regarded to as the gold standard of our hobby as far as lighting and spectrum goes. Here are both light spectrums side by side. While Mahina never provided the spectral peaks or even the LEDs they use, using the same spectrometer they use to measure their lights, we can overlay it over our measured spectrum at the ATI Blue Plus and make approximations between the two. It's important to use the same spectrometer to compare relative spectrums, as different meters have different tolerances and whatnot. So we got the ATI Blue Plus tested with the same HPCS 300, and that's the spectrometer that Mahina Corals uses for his lights and his tests. As we overlap the Meso Blue spectrum next to the ATI Blue Plus, we can see the differences in spectrums very easily. As you can see, the bar does not have any visible representation in UVA, whereas the Blue Plus has a minor peak at 365, which I consider real UVA. Based on the first peak, the Meso Blue bars seem to be peaking around 410 nanometers. But we can also see that the bar does have some violet that doesn't match up with the Blue Plus. So when we get into the spectral peak, we see that peaks earlier than the Blue Plus, more likely around 430. And with LED variability, could be about 433 possibly. But however, to be a true representation of the Blue Plus, it should be peaking at 437 nanometers, not 430. And as we go away from the peak, we see more differences. There's a single sharp spike close to 453 with a sharp fall. The sharp fall slows, and it shows that it's used maybe a 460 or a 470 LED. But on the other hand, the Blue Plus has a smooth transition into cyan, covering more of the blue spectrum along the way. This is unlike the Mesa Blue spectrum. When we get close to cyan, the differences are more obvious. The ATI Blue Plus, it has a lot of cyan to mask the purple and the violet spectrums. So the Mesa Blue, they have very little cyan that I noticed, and you can see that on here as well. The cyan also has a benefit to highlight, certain corals, colors, and fluorescent proteins and such. So it's definitely beneficial, and it's used, to mix the spectrums very efficiently. and to brighten the spectrum as well. The ATI Blue Plus uses the 547 nanometer green and the 578 yellow, none of which is present in the Meso Blue bar. So I thought I'd use this chart here. A spectrum's appearance also matters to me a great deal. Comparing the spectrum with this vision graph, we visualize how the human eye will actually see the colors. With less representation in the blue cyan spectrum and virtually minimal representation of green, the Meso Blue bars at the same relative intensity will have more of a violent tint to it. When we did our testing in between the bars, the herifi and the Meso Blue bars, you can visibly see the difference. We run the 8 bulb ATI fixtures here, and we use Blue Plus, so you can definitely tell the difference. The Blue Plus have more of a cyan look, which is a crisp, more of a aesthetically appealing spectrum, in my opinion. So, given the spectrum results, it's strange that Mahina corals and the Quanta LEDs claim that their lights have more cyan when it actually has less cyan than the ATI Blue Plus. It's also worth noting that corals have never evolved for light on a reef. They've evolved for light and can grow under many different spectrums and many different conditions, and they've been doing so for millions of years. So I'm definitely not sure where they came up with that. So just to double check our analysis, we consulted some data published by another Instagrammer that does a lot of work with spectrums of LEDs and other lights that we do use today over our reef tanks. They published data on various lights, so we thought we would compare and use theirs so we can show the same spectrums that we're actually using up against the Meso Blue, and they seem to be very similar. And in these graphs, we show that we also match up with the BRS measured spectrum, which was actually published before the sky was released. As you can see, the BRS spectrum also peaks at a 437 nanometer. Here's an overlay of the ATI Blue Plus spectrum over the published spectrum of a 2-bar combo of the Quanta bars. As you can see, Telegram took some jabs at the marketing of the sky. He initially said that they peaked at 450. As you can tell on this graph, it actually peaks at 446. More interestingly, Telegram live streamed himself testing the spectrum of the bar combos and a few bars. We can clearly see his spectrometer reading a peak of around 431 nanometers for the combo of the two different Quanta bars, and 425 nanometers for the single Meso Blue. The Meso Blue is designed to replicate, like we said earlier, the ATI Blue Plus, which is the gold standard of lighting for our hobby, but it misses the 437 peak by 12 nanometers. It does not have the same cyan distribution as well. All three spectrums were captured by the UPR spectrometer. This data confirms our analysis that the Meso Blue uses a 430 nanometer LED to make it close to an ATI Blue Plus. Now, remember, Telegram pointed noteworthily, it's a 4 nanometer difference in spectrum peaks between the BRS Investigates video on the sky for Neptune and his testing. In his own test of the Quantas, in best cases, they are off by about 6 nanometers or so from the benchmark. It's also worth noting that only a multiple bar combo will come close to the ATI Blue Plus, not a single Meso Blue like we tested, and what's marketed as well. So you'd have to buy multiple bars to get a similar spectrum, or even close to that with the Meso Blue bars. Even with this, you'd be off by 6 nanometers, like we said. The variation in spectrum peaks slowly lose spec LEDs. So it contradicts their marketing by a lot, in my opinion, in the claim of paying more attention to detail that matters, right? Here we see Mahina Coral suggesting that the Blue Plus spectrum actually peaks at 435 nanometers. In our previous slides, we've already proven this to be false. I don't know if possibly his data has been off the whole time or he's trying to push a false narrative. We're not very sure. But in this next slide, we also see Instagram or Telegram suggesting that he has replicated a platinum standard. So if you haven't even replicated a gold standard, which would be the blue plus spectrum, I'm not sure how the fuck you replicated a platinum standard. So after seeing a lot of posts on social media about these Quanta bars, we got very curious, and we wanted to look into their claims of patent pending technology, so they say, and you know, see what the claim is all about. So we looked at publicly accessible customs data and discovered they were actually importing these lights from a company called Herifi. So the company is actually in Shenzhen, China, and herifi is a popular white label of commodity lights like aquarium bars and grow lights and so on and so forth. I believe they've been in business since 2009, and they make everything from bars to black boxes and other fixtures and such. Just basically tell them what you want, and they'll make it for you. If you're unsure of what you want, they'll handle all the development and save you some time. This saves companies money, and they never have to invest in manufacturing or put in the effort to actually designing a light and make a solid product. They'll kind of do that for you. So, you know, you can just order off of a catalog, or what we actually did is we ordered off of Alibaba, AliExpress as well. They're on there. And it's very easy. Just, you know, like I said, just tell them what you want, and they're going to take care of everything, including the box that you ship in and everything else if you're a company. So very easy to work with, I would imagine. So we got interested in the herifi LED bars, and we found out that the Quanta bars are actually the latter series of the herifi bars. So, you know, we decided to just do a basic customization of what we actually like and prefer over our tanks. And we went with a 68 LED combo. Depending on what LEDs you use with the factory, you can do up to 72 LEDs. That's a 36 LED dual chip combo, if you really choose. We specifically went with a 410, a 430, and a 460 combo. And that's just what we prefer for aesthetics and color and everything else. That mixes with our fixtures really well. So it's definitely something that you can do through the factory very easily, just like Mahina Corals did as well. You can order the same LEDs as well. You can get the 40, but you will have a minimum order in order for them to mold you a board like they did for Mahina Corals. Mahina Corals also claims that the boards in their bars are specifically designed for them. So we consulted TUV Rhineland. They're a world-leading compliance testing agency for their help in tracing the supplier. And there's a 4-letter code that all factories use in China. So they were easy to locate. There's a database that shows that. And there's a company that popped up in Shenzhen. And this proves beyond doubt that neither herifi is making the boards nor Mahina is making the boards. So they ordered a custom bar just like us, nothing more, nothing less. So when we got down to testing, we already had one of our runways set up, so we took out all the corals so we can actually test it and replicate it under real conditions in a tank. That's going to have dissolved organic compounds in it. That can also be a factor with PAR readings and whatnot. And we did not want to test in a dry tank. You know, we wanted to do it underwater. You know, we all know the light is more even underwater with light bouncing off the walls and such. So we wanted to give the bars the best conditions to perform possible. And that way we can do a fair test amongst both bars. So despite the PAR being tested underwater, the Quanta bar's light field had a strong hot spot in the center, as you can see from this chart. This is unlike any T5 output bulbs, which have a broad spread. You're not going to get any of those hot spots. In the Meso Blue, as you can see, gave us an average PAR of 68. The herifi bar had a hotspot just like the Quanta lights do too as well. The fewer LEDs reduced the average par slightly. It gave an average par of 62.44, but it's still relatively close to the Quanta bars. So despite the Quanta bars actually having 80 LEDs versus our custom herifi bar with the 68, it only had an 8.52 par edge over the herifi. So to achieve the 8.5 edge that they got, the Quanta bars actually needed 16% more LEDs, as you see in our graph here. So recently, we've also seen Mahina Corals posting specifically about LED efficiency. Dividing the average par by the number of LEDs, we see the herifi bar that we got has a 0.91 par per LED versus the Quanta, which has a 0.85 per LED. Despite having more LEDs, the Quanta Pro Mesa Blue is less efficient than the herifi. The herifi actually gives you 6.82 more par per LED. So these readings may vary slightly depending on the exact LEDs that you use. And like I said earlier, you can actually use up to 72 with the 36 lenses. If you were to get the custom boards like the Quantas, you would be able to get up to 80 as well, and you can use the dual chips. But if Quanta were using the same number of LEDs as the herifi, they would have less par than the herifi as well. Here we see an example of Mahina Coral's exquisite math skills. Apparently he bought too many lights, or he just can't do math. Oops, he did it again. I don't know a single person that's ever bought too many $400 pumps. It's a good idea that he's engineering potato chips and not LED bars, and it's probably a smooth move that he had herifi build his lights for him. Otherwise, who knows? Could catch some houses on fire. I'm not sure, but it's probably safe to say that was a smart move. Part of LED efficiency comes with the choice of drivers as well. Another selling point Mahina Corals uses is their drivers specifically. I'm not sure exactly what's special about their driver, but you can visibly see that they look rather similar. The only thing that we can tell the difference is in the length of cord and the rating itself. So next we actually went to look at the power draw. Obviously the power draw is important for the performance of the light, your electricity bill, and if it draws too much over a certain amount, it could potentially be unsafe as well. So we went ahead and measured the power consumption with a power consumption meter, and we reported a 5% tolerance of rated wattage. We noticed that the power draw exceeded the upper limit by 6.4%. And this means the Quanta bars draw 11.27 more power than the advertised, and as seen on the graph there, and 21% more power drawn than the herifi bars as well. In a sad attempt to refute supposed misinformation, Mahina Corals came up with a mathematically based assertion. Let's look at the facts. Well, he's right about the factory driver being 60 watts. The 36 LED assumption is that we never went for the dual chip LEDs, which is false. Though some LED colors that actually come from the factory, like the 410s that we used, those are single chip. The herifi factory can customize your bar to however many LEDs you would like, and we used a 3-color combo in ours. So ours actually has the 68 LEDs, not the 36. So factoring in, this calculation, the herifi bar is slightly underdriven when it comes to being put up against the Quanta bars. And when compared in real life, the power distribution per LED is virtually identical. Something else interesting to point out is how Mahina Corals arrived at their calculations. Even if the data they presented was factual, they used the wrong formula for the comparison. When you compare two independent things, you use the percent difference, apples to oranges. In this case, we're using two different strip lights. But when you compare the change of the same thing, you use percent change. We went ahead and calculated the two members with both percent change and percent different formulas. And as you can see, their math does not add up. I'm not sure if his calculator is dusty or what's going on over there, but it's clear that he used the wrong formula. So this makes their mathematical assertion false. A final point to make is Mahina Corals confuses lumens with par. Lumens indicate how bright a light is based on this vision graph here. You may have the brightest greens, but they won't give the energy or the par your coral needs for the growth that we're actually looking for. This loose association between lumens and par is concerning, especially coming from a light manufacturer building lights that will support corals worth the thousands of dollars and giving false pretenses as well. Putting all the data together, we can see that despite the herifi bar having 16% fewer LEDs and 8.5% less par than the Quanta bars, it makes up for the difference by delivering 13% more par per watt and 6.8% more par per LED versus the Quanta bars. As you notice here, the bars side by side pretty much have the same aluminum extrusion, which creates their thermal management. In this picture here, you'll notice the herifi bar has a cleaner look, I believe, in my opinion, with the gray splash guard and the LEDs spread out evenly. And in this picture, you'll notice that the Quanta bars actually have more of an open look. You can actually see the optics, and the LED optics are actually bunched together so they can fit their 40 LEDs as opposed to the 36. I'm assuming they don't have a splash guard to cover the 40 LEDs over the 36 because it's a custom mold if you decide to go that route. But I personally like the other look. I think it looks cleaner, and you don't see the circuit boards in there as well. We also did some thermal tests on both of the bars. And while explaining thermal management, Mahina Corals also suggested that manufacturers actually skimp out on aluminum based off of the cost. However, when we checked the prices of each various metals that are usually used, aluminum actually turns out to be the cheapest. The heaviest part of any light is the heat sink. So to reduce weight, manufacturers reduce the amount of aluminum used in the fans to compensate for the actual less aluminum. So contrary to the claim, they also do not double down on the aluminum. As you can see in my previous pictures, they're using the exact same extrusion as the herifi bars, and this means the thermal mass of the heat sink will be the same. Let me first give a background as to what these videos are. One of Mahina Coral's buddies, Chris Clevin, originally posted this video after I initially started informing folks there was a cheaper alternative to paying the Quanta Reef tax. As we see in his short conversation with the factory worker, he specifically asks them to replicate their customer's custom layout. Everyone that knows how these factories in China work knows they usually won't do such a thing when directly asked. In my honest opinion, this clip really proves absolutely nothing, as they claim I am full of shit and I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm spreading lies. This is a great option for any hobbyist that doesn't want to spend $185 each on a strip light. 4 optics on a supplemental bar is not a substantial loss. If your order is big enough, just like in this conversation shows, they'll actually mold a new board for you that will fit those extra optics. So basically, any normal hobbyist that wants to order enough of these fixtures can also get that done and replicate the Quanta bars. They do have a minimum of 2 fixtures. So that being said, anybody can go on the website on Alibaba.com and contact this factory and order exactly like I did. Nothing special. This is the same mounting bracket that I mentioned to Mahina Corals when he first posted them, that it didn't look like 316 stainless like they claim. 316 stainless is not magnetic. An easy fix though would be to use some appliance epoxy. You can get the clear epoxy and that'll do just fine. But again, 316 stainless isn't magnetic, folks. Good job, Luigi. So we've gone over some of the data, the spectral differences, the par numbers, the power draw, all the marketing and advertising mishaps. So I just kind of want to go through the pros and cons real quick of each light, and then give my last thoughts on both of them as well. So for the pros for the herifi, we have them cheaper than the Quanta. You're not going to pay any reef tax. You can customize it to your liking, which I love. That's a great option. And it's very similar to the upgraded Quanta bar, which it is. We looked at the data and they're both very, very close. I just don't, feel that I would pay that extra. But that's just me personally. The visual appeal is better. I believe it is. With the splash guard and everything, I like that look. And both the lights together, they're IP65 rated. I think that's a great thing. The cons with it is the shipping. The shipping is not cheap. I did pay about $130. But you know, you get what you pay for. In the long run, you save some money. And there's no in-state customer service. I don't know how well, or how fast I can get parts or another light out here when I'm ordering from Alibaba. So that could be a potential issue. And you know, the shipping times when you do order, it could depend on China's freedom. I know there's a lot of COVID lockdowns right now. Me personally, I got my bars in about 7 days after they were built. So I was fortunate, but I know a few others that have ordered since that it's taken a little longer just because of their lockdowns. So that is a potential issue. So that being said, let's go over the Quanta Pro pros. So let's go over the pros for the Quanta Pro lights. The number one thing would be the in-state customer service and warranty. What that exactly is, I'm not sure, but you could probably be guaranteed that you're going to get a replacement or a part a lot faster from them than it was if you were to probably have to get something from the factory in China. That's just a given. It is what it is. And there's a few different pre-made spectrums that they do have. So if that's what you're choosing to go with, if that works for your lights and your primary lighting or whatever you choose to use it for, it's there for you. You don't have to do any thinking or, you know, if you're not really familiar with LED lighting and all the different colors and so on and so forth, these are already made. And, you know, they're good to go, basically. The longer cords as well, that is a pro. However, if you do choose to go with the herifi lights, I know you can get a cord extension on Amazon for about $10-12. So, you know, I definitely know that if anybody's ever had a bigger tank, this is always the biggest pain in the ass is cord lengths. So that's a definite plus. And the free shipping that you get. You do pay a premium for the lights, but at the end of the day, you don't have to tack on shipping, which is nice. So those are the pros. Now, the cons that come with the Quanta Pro LEDs, I would say the spectrum chasing for the supplemental bars, I just don't see a need for that. I don't see a need for some of the colors that they used. If you were to use it for supplemental bars, I would personally rather go with something else. But if you're going to use them for a primary fixture, then maybe that's better for your needs and for your tank. I'm not sure. The 120-degree lenses on the bars for primary use, I think I would personally go with the 90-degree if you're going to use 4 or 5 of these on a tank. You're going to get more par out of that. You might even get better blending. I'm not sure. But the false marketing as well. Some data is not as advertised, like we went through in the slides earlier in this video. And there is no gold standard replicated. Just like we talked about earlier, there was no platinum standard replicated, and there's no gold standard. I just think that's just a bunch of lies and bullshit, but that's just my opinion on it. There's possible thermal issues down the road from the LEDs being bunched up. We don't know what that's going to do to the longevity of this fixture. So that could potentially be an issue. And there's no warranty info on the website. When you go to their website for Mahina Corals and Quanta Reef, it really doesn't state anything. So that's really not going to build a customer's confidence. So that could potentially be an issue for their sales down the road. That's just something that I like to see myself. And paying the Reef tax on a branded white label product, I just think that's a con. There's a lot of things that are rebranded out there, but I just don't see paying an extra $140 for something rebranded. So my overall conclusion for both bars, I think both bars are built very well. I think they're going to be safe to use around, saltwater with the IP65 rating. Like I said, I really like that. I think both bars can do really well for anyone. It just really boils down to budget and preference. I think the herifi is a great option for anybody looking for a customized fixture or even trying to save a few bucks. Overall, there's not one spectrum that's gonna top, everything in the world. It's not gonna make your tank blow up and grow like weeds. I don't really believe in the spectrum chasing. I know that's a big selling point for Mahina corals, but I'm just not buying it personally. I know there's a lot of spectrums out there that we can be successful with, and I think we should probably concentrate on what works best for us. And just based on my needs, I think I'm going to go with the herifi bar. Not only price, but I love the customization that you can do with it. You can play with it a lot. And I just think it's a cleaner look. So for me, I think I'm going to go with that bar. But there's no right or wrong product here. So whatever works for you guys, that's going to be your best option. So take both of these into account and choose, because I think they can both be great options for you guys. Again, thank you guys for tuning in, and till next time.
'Cause I'm a liar. Yeah, I'm a liar.